Perks of Being a Widow podcast. Spoiler, there are none. I'm Avalon, and today I'm speaking with Allie, who lost her husband in a plane incident. In this episode, we discuss military, we discuss sudden loss of a spouse, and we discuss a little bit what that first year as a widow is like. Thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy this episode. It's so nice to meet you virtually. So let's just start with tell me about your husband.
Mark was this absolutely amazing man. He just had this wonderful sense of humor. He was just such a badass. I mean, he was so good at everything, worked really hard at everything, but he also had this amazing humility about him. And I just absolutely loved the humility and how relatable he was, but how hard he dedicated himself to being good at just, everything that he could get his hands on. So he was just really delightful to be around, had just a wonderful sense of humor, and I just always had so much fun with him.
And you had mentioned that you were both in the military. Is that how you met?
It was, yeah. We met at an assignment together when we were both flying, and we were not really friends. We were kind of acquaintances. We knew each other a decent amount because we worked together, but then he moved away, I moved away. We both went to different assignments, and then we later reconnected when we were both stationed in Alaska. It was kind of a fortuitous meeting.
It seems like you guys had a lot of like shared goals and dreams and like just a nice foundation of how you wanted to live life together.
Absolutely. We were very much on the same page with the activities that we wanted to do and people that we wanted to give our time to, and we really felt strong desire to give back and to like draw people into the experiences that we absolutely loved and to pursue authentic human connection and to make that easier for other people and really draw them into that because that's what we felt made life worth living, or at least one of the things that made life worth living. We were very aggressive about pursuing that with each other, but we really wanted to draw other people into that as well and create an experience where it was easy to connect with others and to share life together.
Had you already, like, I know you had mentioned that you had planned on creating business together around adventure and that sort of thing. Is that something you had already started working on?
No, it's really something we had just kind of talked about in theory that we wanted. We didn't necessarily know whether it was a business that we wanted or whether we were going to do it as more of a volunteer opportunity type thing to draw people out. But we were really trying to decide where we wanted to go with that. We knew that we wanted to draw people out, but we just didn't really know what the right way was to go about it. So we considered doing marriage retreats or something of that nature, but we just really hadn't decided on what we were going to
Yeah.
do.
You hadn't quite gotten to that point yet.
No.
Yeah. What was your like dating and courtship like?
When we reconnected, we actually ran into each other at the Aero Club on base. So you can rent just small planes, not military planes. And so I had a plane rented for the day and I was going to go fly out to Lake Clark National Park. I was just going out by myself because I think it's like a pretty random day of the week. And then he showed up there and that was the first time that I had seen him since we had been stationed together many years earlier. We had kept in contact a little bit during that interim, so I knew that he was in Alaska, but I ran into him there and I just invited him out to go flying with me. We went out and flew to Lake Clark National Park, and we just had this amazing experience flying together and exploring around out there just for the day. Came back, and I don't think he thought very much of it. I had a wonderful time, and so I started inviting him out on different outings, and we were living in different places in Alaska at the time, about 6 hours apart. It wasn't necessarily easy, but I invited him to a few adventures, and one thing led to another, and we ended up dating fairly quickly, and then getting engaged somewhat soon thereafter. I guess probably
Mhm.
about 6 months after we had started dating.
So would you consider that to be like your first, whether or not he would it say it's your first date? Would you say that's your first
Yeah,
date?
yeah. Well, yeah. We later came back and decided that was our first date, even though that he didn't think the time.
I'm not gonna lie, that's an epic first date. Like, I think my
Yeah.
my current I'm now remarried, my current husband, like we went for a hike and that was nice, but it's not
Yeah.
like flying a plane. Like that's amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty unique.
What was your wedding like?
We got married one of the places that I grew up, Coos Bay, Oregon, so on the Oregon coast. And there was this beautiful state park that had a botanic garden. I always used to run through there in high school. I was a track and cross country runner, so I'd go on a lot of long runs. So I would always usually try to loop my runs through that garden because it was just absolutely a beautiful place. And I had found like a lot of serenity there growing up. One of my favorite places. We got married there, which was great. It was a pretty small wedding. Tried to keep it as small as possible. He has a giant family, so that was kind of our limiting factor. Pretty small and very much just kind of about sharing community with the people that we cared about and doing some fun activities together for a couple of days.
How did he propose? Or did you
Um,
propose? How did
no, I
that
did
go?
not propose. No, he proposed. We one of the many activities that we did together, our favorite winter activity was snow machining. It's up here in Alaska, and so we had gone out for the day in one of our beautiful places and one of our most favorite beautiful places, and we had kind of climbed up on this mountain. We were just hanging out and enjoying the view, and that's where he proposed.
Like you guys sound fun. Like I want to like hang out.
Thank you.
Like, that sounds so awesome. How much time did you have together?
Well, we were only married for 2 years, so we had almost 3 years together. He died.
Are you comfortable moving on to that
Sure.
part of the conversation? Okay,
Yep.
cool. I know that like as widows we kind of all have like that day,
Mhm.
that is kind of it's seared in there, right? Would you be willing to share that with me?
Sure. Yeah, so we had kind of organized this mini vacation, and we have four girls from his previous marriage. So this was this past summer, and we Mark and I wanted to get our float plane endorsements, learn how to fly float planes, and so I found this really cool course, and it was just in this beautiful location. So we had rented a cabin for the family out there, and the girls were going to play on paddle boards and
Hmm.
rafts and stuff in this beautiful lake. And then we were going to do our flying course, which was supposed to be about 4 or 5 days. We were about halfway through the course, taking turns flying the plane, and I was sitting on the dock for waiting for him to come back, and I was going to fly next, and he was overdue. So I waited on the dock for a little bit because I didn't want to be alarmist, but he was probably about 40 minutes overdue, and I went and found the owner of the place and asked him, is this typical for them to be this much overdue? And he didn't really think a whole lot of it. He tried to call him on the phone or on the radio, sorry, and get a hold of them, couldn't get a hold of them. So he had just made the assumption that they had landed and they were supposed to practice beaching the aircraft. So maybe the battery died and they couldn't start the plane. So that was kind of what the owner thought was going on. So we got in a plane to go search for them. And we flew to the lake that they were supposed to be at, couldn't find them. We flew over another couple lakes just looking around, and on this one lake I saw this silver thing floating in the water. I wanted to say something that I saw this silver thing floating around, but again, I had just like this fear of not being taken seriously and being considered alarmist. And I knew that there was a boat that was kept at a cabin up there on this lake because it was a public use cabin, and we had gone up there the previous year. So I knew that there was a silver rowboat there. So I was just hoping that that was the boat floating in the water. So I didn't mention anything. So we continued flying around, looking at other lakes, and then somebody called us on the radio and said that they had heard a report that a couple of hikers had reported that a plane had gone down in Crescent Lake. At that point, I brought up to the other guy that was in the plane flying, and I said, I think I saw one of the floats from the aircraft floating in the water. So we went back over there and we landed, and the float from the plane was upside down in the water. There was nothing attached to it. We motored around for a while and looked for any sign of anyone that had swam Swam to the shore, which they were wearing life preservers that are bright orange when they deploy, so they should be fairly easy to see. So we looked around for them for a long time. Then a search helicopter arrived. We took off again and looked around from the air, but then went back to the float plane place to just wait it out because the military was going to start conducting search operations. I mean, right when I saw that, when we landed and I saw that float upside down in the water and we didn't see anybody on shore, I was pretty sure that I knew exactly what had happened. And there was, like a 95% possibility that he was dead and that he was in the plane underwater. It took 3 days to recover the plane because the lake was really deep. So it was almost 200 feet down and took a while to confirm that he was in it and then to float the plane up and to bring him and the other pilot back. So there was a small shred of hope that I was nursing for about 3 days. I think I knew when I was waiting on the dock for him to come back and he was 40 minutes overdue. There were just, I don't know, like
Yeah.
I had this feeling that he was not, he was not alive anymore.
Dani Shapiro is a memoirist, and she has a podcast called Family Secrets. One of the phrases that she uses a lot is the unthought known. And it's those things that you know on some level, but you just don't want to think about, aren't ready to think about. And it sounds like that was kind of the experience was but you don't want to know.
Yeah, exactly.
Were the girls with you during this time?
They were. So after I landed, I had to go back and tell them, and then I started calling all of the family as well. So it was just I was pretty numb at that time. It wasn't necessarily hard to do at the time, but I did feel very detached. As soon as intellectually I knew that he was likely dead, like there was just a piece of my brain that just separated from that. I think that was a good thing because I don't know what I would have done if I'd had to confront everything at the same moment in time.
Yeah.
But that numbness persisted for a little while, certainly until I got confirmation that he was dead. But even I would say probably about two weeks or so, it was pretty numb.
And this is just something I'm curious about. Do you think that your military training had any effect on that?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that is certainly a part of it that I'm a pilot, and so I don't lose mental control in an aircraft. So I think like just being in an aircraft at the time when I discovered that he was dead, there's a part of my brain that's just compartmentalized to not deal with certain things while I'm flying and to address those at a later time. So I think that was definitely something that came from my military training, just compartmentalizing. Otherwise, as I've done a lot more research into the way that the brain handles grief and the way that different people handle grief, I think that whatever my brain did at the time to kind of slowly introduce me to the fact that he was dead, I think was very good because, like I said,
Hmm.
if confront that all at once, the reality of it, and that there was no part of me that was numb to it, then I don't feel like it would have been survivable.
So this happened last summer? This is still really fresh.
It is. Yeah, it was 9 months as of yesterday.
Oh, oh boy. It sounds like you're handling it in a much more healthy fashion than I did. So good job. I will say, like, my own personal experience. What happened is my husband just got really sick really fast. And, he was 33. You don't expect your husband to die of heart issues at age 33. When I wasn't numb, I was intentionally numbing. So, like, it was a lot of drugs and alcohol for me personally. One of the things I wrote down, prolonging grief doesn't actually heal it. Thinking about like my own process and what I went through, and I wonder if I had let myself feel those things earlier, if I had been in a better place. But things happen the way they happen. But one of the things that I wrote down from your personal statement that I thought was really profound and I really appreciated, love and grief exist on different sides of the same coin. The only way to kill the grief would be to kill the love, and to do so would be the ultimate betrayal of the beautiful person you lost. It's so beautifully worded and like also so true. I wouldn't trade my pain
Yeah.
because you'd have to let go of the love then, and like that's not it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the things that I encountered fairly early on when I was trying to understand what was going on in my brain and body was something that came from grief research done by Mary Frances O'Connor. And so she talks about the connections that we have to important people in our lives in terms of time, space, and closeness. Time and closeness are kind of indistinguishable to a degree. So it is like the expectation that you are going to either be able to see that person within a certain time frame and the closeness that you have to them. So just them understanding you, them relating to you, and everything that is bound up in there. And then you have the space. So for example, like I come home from work and I expect to see Mark here and I expect to talk about my day. So those are kind of the three dimensions. The time and space are basically two things that need to be rewired in our brain to accept the loss of that person, because when we have expectations that are inconsistent with reality, I think that reintroduces the grief sometimes on a minute by minute basis early on in the early stages, and then later on, it can still be pretty persistent. So one example of that would be when I would home from work and I would see my husband's truck in the driveway. Like I would get excited for a second because I thought that he had beat me home from work. And usually I would get home from work just slightly before him. So I would get excited and then I would have the realization that he wasn't home, that his truck was just sitting there. And that was just like a whole nother wave of pain that would roll over me. And so changing that expectation in the brain takes time. It doesn't happen immediately just because the person dies. It takes some time to remap that. In the case of time and space, that is something that your brain is going to remap. But the closeness piece, like that is, you really don't want to remap that. I mean, you could probably come up with some kind of logic in your brain to say this person wasn't all that important, and you can focus on all the things that you didn't like about them, and maybe you can undermine that closeness, but that would be to do a huge disservice to that person and the relationship that you have. And so you have to find a way to live with that closeness piece still being in your brain and feeling close and connected to that person and honoring that connection while acknowledging the fact that they don't exist in time and space in the same way that they did before.
Yeah, for a long time. And I honestly still I feel like I'm still married to my first husband. Like I kind of joke about it, but it's like I have a dead husband and I have a living husband. I don't know. I deal with things with dark humor. It's how I've
No,
gotten
I mean
through.
that's exactly how I think of it. Like
Yeah.
I feel I'm still married to him, and I hate the fact that I have to choose between married and widowed. In the eyes of the law, I'm no longer married, even though I very much feel like I will always be married to Mark.
Would you mind sharing with me your experience, your 5-day solo hike?
Basically, in I was just surviving for sure for about
Mhm.
the first 2 months, like first 2 or 3 months. At about the 2 month point, I could start to identify, I guess, at least just pieces of my life that I had lost with Mark, that I knew that if I was going to keep living, that I would have to build those areas back up again. And so I kind of made, I guess it was really this mental list of the things that I was lacking in my life in order to have it feel meaningful. And then I was trying to work my way towards what is a life that is worth living, because I didn't feel it at that time, and I kind of go back and forth still today. Like I don't know that I've solidified what is a life worth living. As I was going through that process, I very much felt like I just needed to escape to the wilderness and really get some free space full that was free of distractions, to just kind of focus on what does a life worth living look like, and how do I get there? What am I missing in my current life? What are the steps to get from where I am to where I want to be, and something that, a life that is full of hope and fun and people that I care about again. And so that's the idea that I started with. So I started looking for nature-based retreats. And ideally, I wanted a widow's retreat where I could go into the wilderness, but that there would be a licensed therapist or a grief coach or something like that, somebody that could help guide me a little bit. And then I wanted to be with other widows or other people that were somewhat in a similar situation experiencing grief, so we could all kind of brainstorm together and I could understand their experience and maybe work on a collective solution to the problem. But I could not find anything like that. I couldn't find anything even similar. So, not having any other ideas for what to do, I just decided that I was going to go out and do my own thing by myself and just kind of test out this idea. And so I did that. I went back to a place that Mark and I both love. It was the first backpacking trip that we did together and we had this absolutely magical experience out there. So I went back, I did kind of a similar version to what we did out there our first time. And I took, I guess, a couple different pieces of material, a couple books on, I guess they were more like therapeutic books or ideas of how to do meditations in the wilderness. And so I just wanted like something a little bit structured to work through since I was doing this by myself and I didn't really have any idea of exactly what I was going after, how I was going to do it. It was basically just an experiment for me to see if it was something helpful. And I really do feel like I got a lot out of it. I felt as soon as I got away from civilization and I stopped seeing people on the trail and I got past the point where the day hikers weren't there anymore, I did feel this sense of peace and relaxation that descended on me. And I just didn't really have any constraints on my time. So I spent a lot of time wandering and thinking, trying to go through some of these meditations. I don't know that they were necessarily helpful, but I think that I got somewhere, and I had a lot of time to just think and relax and enjoy the environment. It was a very refreshing experience. What I was lacking there is I would have loved to share that with other people and
Mm-hmm.
to be able to bond and discuss with other people experiencing similar things. I think that was the one thing that was missing is that it did feel very lonely, and it wasn't in a necessarily bad way at the time because it gave me some space to think, but I really wanted to also be with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came back from that and I had done a lot of research into adventure therapy, which I didn't know was a field prior to that. And it just seemed like this would be a really effective therapy to use on people that were experiencing grief. And I felt like I got a lot out of it and that I would get more out of it in a group setting and probably working with a professional or with a little bit more of a like a structured program.
Mm-hmm. There is something about the shared experience. I mean, that sounds like such an amazing experience in and of itself, going out in the woods and like there's something just about being out in nature by yourself that just feels cleansing. But there's something about that shared experience aspect, especially among people who have gone through something similar or are going through something similar. I don't know about you, but my own personal experience, the people around me like love me and supported me. They don't understand and they can't, it's one of those until you're living it you don't like it drives me crazy when people are like, I understand because of X, and it's like, well, but you don't though. And it's like you can try but you don't, like unless you've actually been through it. It sounds like something that could be a really powerful healing modality for many people.
Absolutely.
Have you found sources of community?
I have to a degree. I would say that's for me in my grief journey, that is really the biggest thing that is lacking is it's been a little bit difficult for me to find community. So a couple drivers of that. I was only Mark and I were only living together for a little bit less than 2 years when that happened. And so
Hmm.
we hadn't really had the time to work into friendships in our community. And we did just spend a lot of our time together, whether it was transiting back and forth when we lived 6 hours away, or once we were finally living together, we were just so excited to be able to have that dedicated time. So I really didn't have any close friendships in the area. And so that has been a struggle. And then building friendships after this, close friendships has also been a struggle. So I do unfortunately, mostly through my military experience, I know a lot of widows. And so some of them I have reached out to, and one woman I've gotten very, very close to, and we've traveled a couple of times together. And I do feel a real sense of community with her because her husband died in kind of similar circumstances to me. So we really have that understanding with it being an aviation accident and being just very sudden and unexpected. The connection with her has been amazing. I wish that she lived in the same place that I do, and it's part of my long-term plan to convince her to move up to Alaska eventually. She doesn't know that, but she's great. And so I have found some instances of community, but I desperately need that, and I don't quite know how to go about it.
There's something to be said for like virtual communities. I know the Facebook groups can be helpful, but it's not the same as having
No,
that.
it's not. It's not the same as having someone over for dinner and just talking and having that close and continuing contact.
Yeah. Have there been, in addition to like nature and such, have there been other healing modalities that have been particularly helpful?
I think that the more that I focus on myself and what I am experiencing and the difficulty there, the harder it is when I try to look and find ways to help other people, then that has been very powerful and felt very purposeful. So with this whole project of trying to develop an adventure therapy retreat and going back to school and doing a lot of research around those type of things, I have felt that to be very meaningful and purposeful. It does feel healing in a sense to think of what I can do to help people to go through this in the future, because I just really don't think that we do this well as a society, and that we've lost a lot of these historical grief traditions that have helped people in their transitions before. And this is just, it's a very lonely process, and so I hope that I can do something that makes someone else's grief journey a little bit less difficult than mine was, or that yours was. That by itself has been very, very healing, because I'm researching not only what is going to help for people in the future, but there have been a lot of insights that I've had just for myself along the way as well. In addition to that, just some other kind of things that I've dabbled in that have been really helpful. I wanted to practice leading groups in the wilderness and teaching some wilderness skills. So I started up a women's adventure group at my church. I've had a lot of fun doing that too, and it's given me a good chance to get out and to meet some new women and
Mm.
to practice leading groups in the wilderness and try to get a better handle on that.
That's awesome. One of the things that you said was like the way that we handle grief in our society is that, well, we don't. And that's one of my goals with this podcast, is to kind of bring more light to it, and also to like maybe like at some point I'm hoping to get into like grief traditions of other societies, and like those grief traditions that we have lost. It's not within my culture, but like sitting Shiva, like we don't really do those things. And so it kind of becomes I guess I'm just gonna make it up kind of thing, which I mean, I guess, but also like I agree, like there's not like a structured, like we don't have a like, here's your grief structure, like not that we need a structure, but like there's not like a solid playbook for like how to
Yeah,
deal with this.
yeah, I think a little bit of a structure would be really nice just for those people that really don't know what to do. And I was definitely one of those people before I had this experience that I had no idea what to do. I had no idea what was acceptable. And I would have loved to just had at least a structure to fall into so that I could provide that support, or at least give that person experiencing grief the idea that I wanted to provide that support and that I was present and there and engaging in the grief tradition. And then on the other side of that, it would have just been nice to have some sort of expectation for how the first couple of weeks were going to play
Mm.
out, maybe, because I think the structure at the time would have made me feel a little bit more safe, because it was just like you said, you're just making it up, and you're not in a good mental space to be just making stuff up and coming up with good plans. Just like sleeping and eating was the most difficult thing that I did in the first 2 weeks.
Hmm.
Like I'm sure it was for most people,
Yeah.
and coming up with a solid game plan for handle the mourning process was just well outside of my capacity.
Yeah, I remember like I like eating was really difficult and like people kept bringing me food and I was like this is just like this is gonna sit in my fridge and it's gonna go bad. Like I did have one friend that she had lost her father a couple years prior and she brought me like her family recipe lasagna, but she's like put this in the freezer. Here are directions on how to heat it up when you're ready to eat.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be for a while, but when you're ready, here it is. And I was like, because because people don't know what to do and I understand because like I people when people close to me have lost someone since like I even don't know I'm like I don't know what to say because there's nothing to say.
No, there isn't. And I will say that my family and Mark's immediate family, his brothers and sisters, I think just did an amazing job of supporting me. They all flew out here, which none of them live up here. They're all down in the lower 48 all over the
Mhm.
place. And so several of his brothers and sisters flew up here to be with me. One of his very close mentors, who was kind of like a husband and wife couple. They were sort of like second parents to him. They flew up to be with me, and all of these people stayed for 5 days to a week in my immediate family, my sister and my parents. That was absolutely amazing. That was like I mean, they couldn't have done anything better for me at the time, just to come up here and be with me and mourn together. That was amazing.
That is amazing. Have you experienced so like I was just this just popped in my brain like so after my husband died he's cremated and I have him in a whiskey bottle because it's where he'd want to be. For the first couple of months after he died, I was like carrying it around with me because I was like, I'm carrying him around emotionally. Might as well bring him around physically. And like take him with me to the bar and I'd have him on the bar. It's like, we're having a drink. So he died in January. And I think it was early to mid-March and I was at the bar that he worked at, by the way. So it was like people that all knew exactly what was going on. And the DJ at one point was like, does she have to do that? It's been a couple months. Can't she just like and I so wanted to go up to him and be like, Derek would like to request a song and just like lean into it. I
Just make them
didn't.
feel real uncomfortable.
Exactly. I didn't. And there was a part of me that was like, I mean, good for him that he doesn't understand. Good for him that he's never gone through this. Great. Have you experienced that kind of, I don't want to say pushback, but the kind of people not holding space for your grief?
I would say so. Yes, not in the same way that you have, and it's been, I think, a lot less overt for me than it is for a lot of other people. But I have gotten the sense since maybe like the 4 to 6 month point that most people around me intellectually they kind of think, okay, so we're past that and we're going on with life, and that's just in the past and it's gone. I don't do a great job of talking about where I'm at, and I look pretty functional on the outside. I would say like the inner turmoil is completely a different. It looks way different than the way that I outwardly portray things. So I think I look like I'm okay, but I'm really not okay. And so people just kind of have this expectation that everything's fine now and that I'm just getting on with life and functional. And I think that has been hurtful because I feel like my support has just drained away.
Mhm.
And there was a like after the first 2 months, there was kind of a significant pullback, but then after about the 4 to 6 month point, that just kind of seemed like the vast majority of people kind of came to the conclusion, okay, she doesn't need any support anymore. There's no reason to check in on her. She's totally fine and going on with life.
Mm.
Yeah, I struggle with that because I don't know how to ask for what I need because I don't actually know what I need. I just want people to know that I am still struggling and that I'm not okay. To some extent, it's not like I still have moments that very much feel like the accident just happened and
Yeah.
like I'm just confronting it. I have other days where it seems like something that I can recover from and I really feel pretty good. So it really depends on the day, it depends on the week. But yeah, I do feel the sense that most people think, okay, it's time to move on, or she has moved on.
Yeah. I don't want to say it gets better because like that's not the right word. It gets easier to carry.
Yeah.
My 2-year wedding anniversary. So my husband, we were only married 80 days when he had the absolute gall to die. So it was my 2-year wedding anniversary, and I decided to travel. Like I always travel for our anniversary, mostly because I was like, I don't want to be around people I know right now. I was going to New Orleans, and it was the first time that I had this I had this little like harness thing to carry his ashes in because that's the kind of crazy that I am. But it was the first time that I had carried him around for a while, and I had forgotten how heavy how and that was like such a metaphor. I just forgot how heavy this was, because you do heal and move forward, and it does get easier to carry and easier to bear, but like it's always there.
Yeah, I like that metaphor.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would like to share or discuss?
I don't think so. No, nothing is coming to mind.
Okay, cool. And I will say, like you said, it's been 9 months. Like that's still really, really early. Like I know, at least for me, that first year, I don't remember,
Yeah,
because you're like processing ability and, things aren't being stored long term. I guess I say that to say, like, give yourself grace because your brain's literally rewiring right now.
sure. Yeah. Would you say that the first year was kind of a turning point once you got past that, then you felt more functional, or were there other
Mm.
milestones?
Yeah. So the first year for me personally was a lot like honestly spiraling pretty hard. Like the first year was rough. I was struggling with making a lot of really not great choices. And so early in the second year, so it would have been like, I think it was like March. So he died January of 2017. And so like March 2018 was kind of when I hit what I would call my rock bottom. And it became like, okay, therapy or die. Those are the options. Either I go to therapy or I continue on this path and I will die. So that was kind of the big turning point for me. I would say this, like a lot of the second year was dealing with the repercussions of the first year because terrible choices. And I feel like by the third year was kind of when I was getting into more like, and I do feel like the second year was kind of like adjusting to that new normal, which I kind of hate the phrase new normal, but it's accurate. But yeah, I do feel like a lot of that first year was just self-medicating, numbing, making choices that I knew were unhealthy, but that made me feel something other than what I was feeling. And so, yeah, a lot of the second year was kind of dealing with the aftermath of those choices. That was my experience.
Yeah, I've certainly felt such a strong compulsion to numb, and I've done my best to stay away from that just because like I know I have a problem with that and I know I have a family history of that too, and so it
Yeah,
terrifies me. 'Cause I know exactly where it'll lead, most
yeah.
likely. How long have you been married to your second husband?
We're coming up on a year. It's really nice to be approaching a wedding anniversary with a living husband.
And how did you two meet?
Moved home to Iowa to help take care of my grandmother, and when we moved her into a nursing home, I moved into an apartment 2 doors down from the bar that he owned. So I walked in and met the cute bartender. And actually, the it wasn't our first meeting, but it was a couple weeks after we had met for the first time, and it was the anniversary of Derek's death. I was like, "Will you do a shot of whiskey with me in honor of my husband?" And he was like, "Absolutely."
And does he have an experience with grief at all?
With grief, yes, not with partner or spousal loss.
Yeah, I guess I don't know, like a lot of thoughts surrounding whether to ever engage in the dating world again, but my what I see on the Facebook pages is not exactly, yeah, not encouraging. That would be a better better word to use, but I'm sure that's just a snapshot of probably the some of the worst experiences because people are more likely to write or vent about those than they are the positive ones.
It's true. I know for me, for a long time, I was like, never again, because like I had never wanted to get married in the first place, and then I met Derek, and everything changed, and then it all changed again. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a whole other journey, and that's one of those like, there's no rush and there's no need. If you get to a point where you're like, yeah, I suppose I'm interested, but if you're not, then you're not.
Yeah. Do you feel like your second husband, how do you refer to him? Should probably ask you that before
Yeah,
designating
I'm.
him.
I mean, I guess second husband. I kind of want to refer to him as my current husband, but I don't know how he'd feel about that.
Yeah, well, I was gonna call him that earlier. That you still feel like you're married to your first husband. So,
Mm.
in a way, they're both still current. Do you feel like your second husband kind of understood right away and was okay with the connection that you still had with your first husband, or was that something that that took a while for him to understand?
Yeah, I think he, especially more like, because I've dated, I had dated since, and I've definitely had like, I don't know, boyfriends, partners, I don't know, like I've definitely dated people that just didn't get it, which is fine. It's not for everybody to get, but I do feel Luke is my current husband. I do feel that he more than most people like understood and held space pretty early in our dating history. Was like, so my wedding anniversary with my first husband was October 14th, and like we started dating October 2nd. So it was like really soon after we started dating that I was like, oh, and it's my wedding anniversary and I'm gonna go to Six Flags, okay, bye. And how I knew that he was like special, how this connection was special is like, it was the first time that I wanted someone to join me for my wedding anniversary. It was the first time that I was like, hey, do you want to come with me? And like, and he couldn't, and like it was fine, and it was probably for the best that I still had that. But that was kind of how I knew like that this was something special. Was like, it was the first time I wanted to actually invite someone in to my grief and my space and my like, I guess, marriage. And there have been struggles. Like there have been moments where, you know, I mean, it's hard to not get into the comparison brain sometimes. And so like for both of us, but you talk about it and you work through it.
I see a lot of people that kind of have, I guess, a bit of a problem with the jealousy aspect, the
Hmm.
partner being on the other side. And there's one of two ways to look at it. Like you can feel jealous that that connection still exists, or that can make you feel the opposite of jealousy, that you realize how capable that person is of love, and you realize that love has this lasting power and that it doesn't just die. And you have to look at the other side of that, the other side of the coin, that like if my love for you could just vanish one day, then wouldn't it be worth so much less? I guess it would be a lot nicer if other people who have not experienced grief, or people that are dating widows or widowers, would reframe it in that matter rather than be jealous of it, look at it as a testament to the enduring power of love.
Yeah.
And I think that any of us would say that, like, to a partner, we just want, if I die, I want your love to just evaporate and cease to exist. Like, nobody wants that. They want it to endure. And so
Hmm.
you see it enduring. I think it's just a very powerful testament to that person's capacity to love, and also the power of love.
Hmm. Awesome. Thank you, Allie.
Yeah, and thank you. I'm excited to listen to your podcast and see what insights people have.
Yeah. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, and I think you're a badass.
Thank you. Well, good luck with your podcasting.
Thank you. Have a good one. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you are interested in being on the podcast, please email me at avalon@perksofbeingawidow.com, or you can find me on social media on Instagram at perksofbeingawidow. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day.